New Year's Eve is supposed to be a time of celebration, but for one community in Texas, it became a tragedy of the worst kind when a woman died under horrible circumstances. Authorities told ABC 13 that this woman, identified as Philippa Ashford, was standing at the end of the driveway while family and friends in the cul-de-sac were shooting off fireworks when she suddenly clutched her body and said, "I think I've been shot." She collapsed to the ground and died. Now, according to a sergeant with the Harris County Sheriff's Office, he says, "At this point, from our witnesses and seeing at the scene, we believe this may very well be the case of celebratory gunfire somewhere else in the neighborhood. No indication a family member or anyone else in the cul-de-sac was discharging a firearm." And that is easy to understand because if you're doing that thing, and I'll get into that tradition in a second, you don't generally do it at waist level or something right in the area. But hypothetically, in some parts of the country, and Texas is one of those parts, it's a thing where when you are celebrating on certain holidays, you just shoot a gun in the air. And you forget for a second that it's a deadly weapon and that bullets that go up eventually come down. And there's a lot of empty space, but there's also a lot of people in some areas, and Houston is certainly one of those areas, and she died. Now, more from Sergeant Ben Beall. He says, "I don't know you can even figure what the odds are. You've got the family together, celebrating the new year, and now the matriarch of the family is deceased." And officials apparently have gone house to house looking for shell casings and talking to residents in an effort to identify the origin of the gunshot. Good luck with that, because the very nature of this crime is you're never gonna find the person, and the person is never even going to know that because they wanted to celebrate a little bit, someone died. They shot a bullet in the air, it killed someone, and they will probably never know. Even if they see this news, and even if they live in that area, the very fact that multiple people would have done this around the same time, they will never know that they were responsible. And it reminds me of, one of those hypothetical games that you play where it's like, if you could get $1 million, but in getting it, somewhere in the world, someone would die, would you do it? With the idea being, well, it's a huge gain and you'll never know the person who died, would you be willing to do that to a person that you'll never know? So this is like that game, except the gain is nothing. You shoot a bullet in the air and you feel cool for a second or whatever, and the cost is the same, that someone has to die. And I've spent New Year's in Texas, so I've seen this happen. I know that it's a traditional thing and that you're not supposed to attack traditions, even if you think that they're stupid, but this is stupid. It's still a gun when you fire it on New Year's or on the 4th of July or on Christmas or God knows what. It doesn't suddenly become anything other than a deadly weapon just because fireworks are also going off and because you've had a couple of beers and because you're feeling good. But it is a part of our culture that we think, oh, sure, this thing is a weapon, but isn't it fun sometimes? Isn't it a cool hobby? Isn't it fun to collect them? Isn't it fun to go somewhere and shoot them? And so we normalize the casual use of things that are designed purely to kill things. And it might be extremely rare that something like this happens. Maybe this is the only one this year or this decade or in the last 50 years. But is any amount of celebratory gunfire worth this woman dying? And let's put up a picture of her, because people in her community have been talking a lot about how amazing she was, the great work she did as a crisis psychiatric nurse for more than 15 years. She was a leader in the community, and she's dead for nothing. If you never had a single person in Texas or anywhere shoot their gun to celebrate, they would be just fine. But if they keep on doing that, maybe every once in a while someone like Philippa Ashford has to die. This is just a small part of the huge issue we have culturally with guns, but it's one that would be so easy to change, and I really hope that people do that. Check out the Damage Report podcast each day, wherever you get your podcasts, whether Pocket Casts or Stitcher or iTunes. You can join me as I give you the news and stories you want, with a range of co-hosts and interview guests jumping in on the fun each day. Again, that's the Damage Report, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you get them at iTunes, don't forget to rate and review. Sometimes I'll read them live on the show.